Erev Tov, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our Parashat Shavua class. I know the background today means that I am at home. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it done in person, do a lot of pre-scheduled things that on my calendar. But the beauty of the internet is that we can broadcast live. And we are happy that you are joining us today, Bezat Hashem. Here we are studying Parashat Shemini tonight. And we have lots of incredible chidushim to share with you. One of the subject matters of this week's parasha is that of the death of Aharon's two sons. Vayikhu bnei Aharon, Nadav Avihu, ish machtato. The two sons of Aharon, Nadav and Avihu, each took their own particular pan, and vayitenu bahen esh, and they placed a fire in that pan. This was an esh zara, a foreign fire, asher lo tziva otam, which they were not commanded to do, and as a result, they died. The Midrash on this pasuk informs us that there are 4 times in the Torah that mention the death of Nadav and Avihu, and all 4 times mention their specific misconduct, what they did bad. And the reason is because they were such tzaddikim that we don't want anybody to think that the reason they died was because of something else. The only reason they died was because of this misconduct, of this error of starting their own fire. Don't think that they were doing some other things that may have caused their death or their downfall. The question is, what was their sin? In fact, what was the underlying reason for that they had to die? The Chachamim actually bring down 13 possible sins of what they have done. There was brought down in the Bet Yosef. The Bet Yosef, in his conversation with the Malach, he used to have periodic conversations with the angels, and the Malach told him that this was a combination of this small sin of lighting a fire when they were not asked to, and Aharon's involvement in the Chet Egel. Aharon's involvement in the Chet Egel in and of itself would not be a reason to have his 2 sons killed, because their sons were old enough to be responsible for themselves. They're no longer, so to speak, connected to Aharon's Avera, but that did have an effect on them, and with the addition of this lighting foreign fire, they were killed. The Midrash brings lists 4 of these Averot that could have resulted in their death. Number 1 was the fact that they were shtuye yain, they were drunk, they were under the influence of wine, and from that the Torah gives us lists a mitzvah in this week's parasha that a kohen serving cannot be drunk. Some say they were not wearing the appropriate clothing to serve in the Bet HaMikdash. They were mechusar begadim. Others say that they went into the Mishkan without washing their hands and their feet, as Kohanim are required to do. And the 4th reason that the Midrash brings down is that they did not have any children, and anyone that does not have children is chashuv kemet, and that was their avera. There are other reasons brought down in the Mefarshim. Today we're going to focus on one of these reasons brought down by Rashi. Rashi says on the aforementioned pasuk that we started the class with, Rabbi Elazar Omer, Lo metu bnei Aharon ela al yedeh shehoru halacha bifnei Moshe Rabban. That the reason why these 2 sons, Nadav and Avihu, passed away was because they taught halacha in front of Moshe, their rabbi. And what was the halacha that they taught in front of Moshe? Amru, the Midrash brings down, Yakut Shimoni, Af al pi she'aesh yoredet min hashamayim, mitzvah lehavi min ha'edyot. That even though there was a miracle that was taking place every day in the Bet HaMikdash, that there was a fire that was coming down from heaven, mamash, all the way down to the Mizbeach, and consuming the korbanot, there is a mitzvah to bring from a hedyot, to bring our own fire. Here on earth, we still have to light our own fire, which was actually described in last week's parasha, in Parashat Tzav. The truth is, the Rambam says that they were right. By them lighting their own fire, they were totally correct in doing so, because that's what the mitzvah says to do. But their sin was indeed that they taught this halacha, or they acted on this halacha in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. The Rashbam says that on that specific day, on Vahi Bayom Shemini, on the day of Hukam HaMishkan, that the Mishkan was going to be erected and continue to be erected le'olam va'ed, until obviously it comes down when they travel. Moshe Rabbeinu did not want a man-made fire. This day was so holy. This day was so special to Klal Yisrael and to Hakadosh Baruch Hu that he wanted the only fire to be the fire that was coming down from Shemayim, so that everybody can see. And although Nadav and Avihu, their intent was correct, because the halacha says you have to have a fire shel hediot. There has to be an esh shel hediot, an earth, a man-made fire, to cover up the miracle of the godly fire, as brought down in the Mefarshim in last week's parasha. Nevertheless, they didn't ask permission, so they went on their own and they lit this fire, when indeed Moshe Rabbeinu just wanted to have, for this one day only, a fire coming down from Shamayim, and that's it. And because they acted on their own, and they did not ask Moshe Rabbeinu, their teacher, to do so and ask permission first, this is the reason why they were killed. Today, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to go through many stories throughout the Talmud that emphasize this point of Moreh Halacha Bifnei Rabo, of a person who takes matters into his own hand and not gets the advice from his teacher, or teaches a halacha in front of his teacher, which he's not supposed to. There was once a student that came in front of Rabbi Eliezer, and he taught a halacha in front of him. And Rabbi Eliezer went to his wife, whose name was Ima Shalom, and he said to her, "I'm not sure if this student is going to last the year." And it turns out this student passed away. And when after the student died, or news came that the student died, his wife came up to Rabbi Eliezer and said, "How did you know? What, are you a prophet? How are you supposed to know that this guy was going to die all of a sudden?" And he said, this student, I'm not a Navi, but I know one thing, that anybody who's moreh halacha bifnei rabo, anybody who teaches a halacha in front of the rabbi and does not let the rabbi take the stand and be in charge, they are chayav mita. And it turns out that this student, when he said that halacha, he wasn't actually standing in front of Rabbi Eliezer. The Mefarshim explained that he was shalosh parsaot. He was quite a distance away, but word got back to Rabbi Eliezer, and he said, "You teach us a halacha without confronting and advising with your rabbi. That cannot be." We see how severe this avera is of moreh halacha bifnei rabo. The question is, why is the punishment so harsh? Why is the avon, the sin, why does it result in an onish that is so difficult and so painful? And why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu specifically choose Nadav and Avihu to get punished dafka on this day of Beyom Hakamat HaMishkan, on Yom HaShemini? Yes, although they did it on the 8th day, but maybe if he's going to mete out the punishment, give it out later. Of Chaim Shmulevitz, in his Sefer Sichot Musar, he explains and he quotes the Gemara in Masechet Me'ilah. So at the time of the Roman dominion over the Jewish people, there were a lot of decrees that the Romans had on the Jews. Number one, they couldn't keep Shabbat. Number two, they couldn't do Brit Milah. They weren't able to keep Taharat Mishpacha, Taharat Habayit. Women couldn't go to the mikveh. And there was this one man, his name was Reuven ben Israbuli, who actually dressed up like a Roman and got a haircut like a Roman, and tried to convince them to annul these decrees. He actually was successful in doing so, and he for a short period of time, these decrees were annulled. The problem is he got caught, and they found out that he was a Jew, so they instituted the decrees of not being allowed to keep Shabbat, Brit Milah, and Taharat Mishpacha. So the Jewish people had no choice but to send one of their great representatives to speak and act on behalf of Am Yisrael to try to get them to remove these decrees. Who did they end up sending? None other than Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great Tana Rabbi Shimon, who we celebrate the Hilula on Lag BaOmer. But they needed somebody to accompany Rabbi Shimon, and they were looking for someone who can go with him on the derech. It was a long, arduous journey all the way to where the Roman headquarters were. So they decided that they were going to choose Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Yosef. Now the Tana, the great Tana Rabbi Yosef, his son Rabbi Elazar. When Rabbi Yosef heard that his son was chosen to accompany Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yosef said, "You know what? No, I don't want my son going with Rabbi Shimon." I go, "Why not? What's wrong with your son going to big zechut to go walk with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai?" He goes, "No, you don't understand. Because if something comes up and Rabbi Shimon gets upset, and I don't want my son being put into harm's way. I want it to come back peacefully. He has a family. I can't have him go with Rabbi Shimon." Rabbi Shimon promised him, I promise I'm going to take care of your son. I'm going to protect your son. Nothing's going to happen. I give you my word. The Gemara explains that as they were walking, a question came up. They were talking in Torah. Where do we know that the blood of a sheretz, the blood of a creepy crawler, is tameh? And before Rabbi Shimon was able to give the answer, Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yossi, whispered under his breath, oh, there's a pasuk, V'zeh lachem hatameh hasbasheretz. He quotes this pasuk. Rabbi Shimon heard the fact that he said this pasuk. He answered the question in front of him before Rabbi Shimon got to answer this. And he said, I can see that you're a great Talmid Chacham. But then he says, Al yachzor haben etzel aviv. Let the son not return back to the father. Immediately, almost instantaneously, Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Yossi started feeling faint and was about to die. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai sees this, and he recalled the promise that he made to his father, Rabbi Yosef, that he was going to protect Rabbi Elazar. So he prayed for his behalf, and he got better. And that's exactly what happened. Again, we see the severity on what it is to speak a halakha in front of your rabbi and not letting the rabbi answer. Another situation that was another story that was brought down the Gemara is that of Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon was in doubt. He wasn't sure. He had a question. He goes, why is it that when it comes to bringing the Korban HaOmer, a person is not allowed to eat from the new crop until they bring the Korban HaOmer? And he was wondering, why is it that that when we bring the Korban HaOmer, I'm not allowed to eat from the new crop, but I can, if the lechem apanim, if the bread that it was on the shulchan in the Bet HaMikdash was brought, even before they brought the Korban HaOmer, it's still kosher. Why is there a difference between the bread that's in the Bet HaMikdash and a regular person's grain that grows in his field? And one of his students, his name was Yehuda ben Nehemiah, gave this whole long answer. And he answered the question. And Rabbi Tarfon heard the response, and he stayed quiet. Shatak, Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon didn't answer. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Nehemiah, he starts smiling. He's like, yes, I got the answer. Yeah, it's amazing. Like I stumped him. I figured out what was bothering him. I got the answer. I want you to kind of think about this for a moment. Imagine you were sitting in the presence of Rav Ovadia Yosef, and he had a question that was bothering him, and you came up with an answer that he didn't think of, and your answer was right. You would feel like $1 million. You would feel like, oh my goodness, I just thought of something that the great Chacham Ovadia Yosef did not think of. So the feeling of joy and elation that must be going through this rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda ben Nehemiah, is something that was unreal. Like, Rabbi Tarfon couldn't answer, I'm able to answer. Who was in the audience? Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was in the audience, and he looked, and he said the following words, Tza'avu panecha she'eshavta et zaken. I see your face is yellow, or meaning it's bright, because you answered the sage. Temehani im ta'arich yamim. I wonder if your days will be lengthened. He wasn't sure. He wasn't sure if his days are going to be lengthened, if he was going to survive. And Rabbi Yehuda bar Eli, the great Tanaim, says, you know what happened? That story took place just before Pesach. And when it came time to Shavuot, the holiday of Atzeret, they came, as was the custom, to go visit. The students would always go visit the rabbis on the holidays. And Rabbi Tarfon says, hey, where's Yehuda ben Nehemiah? I go, Yehuda ben Nehemiah passed away. No, he was within 7 weeks. Within 7 weeks, Yehuda ben Nehemiah was no longer alive because he spoke up in front of Rabbi Tarfon. Another very famous story that brought down at the end of Masechet Baba Kama, where Rav, one of the first of the Amoraim who lived in Bavel, he prohibited a certain person from giving over his belongings to one of the Roman or one of the Babylonian people over there at the time. But this man, he was going to refuse Rav's ruling. He said, no, I'm going to do whatever I want. Rav Kahana, who lived at the same time as Rav, but was one of his students, Rav Kahana said, you're gonna refute, you're gonna go against what Rav told you to do? There's no way that's happening. So Rav Kahana killed him. How did he kill him? Not sure. I don't know if he struck him with something, probably, said some very holy name of Hashem. The guy was dead. Now Rav says, listen, I understand why you killed him. In normal situations, for example, the Persians, they wouldn't care so much, but now we're actually under the rule of the Greeks, and they are not happy. They will not let anybody get away with murder, and you're going to have to pay for this. So you need to leave. And you need to leave and go back to Israel. You cannot stay here in Babylonia. You're going to go to the yeshiva of Rabbi Yochanan. But you have to promise me, when you go to the yeshiva Rabbi Yochanan, you cannot ask any questions for 7 years. 7 years. You're just going to sit quietly and listen to the shiurim of Rabbi Rabbi Yochanan. So he made his way. He gets up and he goes to Eretz Israel. And he sits down in the shiur of Rabbi Yochanan, and he's listening, and he's just quiet. And people wondering, who's that rabbi over there that's sitting over there? He goes, that's the lion that came from Babel, the lion that came from Babylonia. So so he goes up to the rabbi, and he goes, he's not answering anything. So as he kept not answering, they kept on moving him back. The further away you were from the rabbi, then I guess the less it was that you were able to be part of the shiur. The Rabbi Yochanan says, "This is a lion. This lion turned into a fox. He turned into a fox." So when Rav Kahana heard this, he says, "Let the 7 rows that they pushed me back take place to the 7 years that I was told not to answer him." And all of a sudden, he started answering every single one of the she'elot of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, every time he answered another question, they moved him another row back up towards the front. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Who is this guy? I got to see this person." So they lift up his eyelids because he was very old, and he sees Rav Kahana. And when he sees Rav Kahana had a certain perplexion in his face that it looked like he was always smiling. So when Rabbi Yochanan saw that he was smiling, he's like, "This guy's making fun of me. This rabbi's making fun of me because he's able to answer my question." Did some sort of things with his eyes, and he killed Rav Kahana. And then when after they took him out of the Ben Midrash, Rabbi Yochanan, to defend himself, he says, "Can you believe it? This guy was smiling at me. How dare he smile at me like this?" And they told him, "No, he wasn't smiling at you. Don't you understand? This person, that's the way he looked." Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. So he went back to the kever where they buried Rav Kahana, and there was a snake blocking the kever. He says, "Please let the rabbi meet his student." Snake didn't move. He goes, "Please let the friend meet the friend." Snake didn't move. He says, "Please, please, please let the student," referring to himself, "meet the rabbi." Snake finally got out of the way. He goes over there into the kever. He prays, and Rav Kahana comes back to life, and he invites him to come join into the yeshiva back again. Rav Kahana says, "Listen, thank you for bringing me back to life. One miracle is enough. I cannot go back to the yeshiva." Again, we see how severe it is for someone to speak and answer in front of the rabbi. Another story with Rabbi Akiva, where him and Rabbi Eliezer was his rabbi, were going back and forth arguing with regards to whether or not if Shabbat is Erev Pesach, is a person allowed to prepare his utensils in order to slaughter the Korban Pesach. And it turned out that Rabbi Akiva disproved Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Eliezer said, "You got me with regards to the shechita, b'shchita hishivatni, but you should know b'shchita tehem mitato. With shechita, that will be his death." And it turns out that Rabbi Akiva died a very, very horrible death by the Romans, as we all know, and almost predicted by Rabbi Eliezer because of what Rabbi Akiva said at this moment. You answered for your rabbi. That's disrespectful. How can you do something? Moreh halacha bifnei rabo. But the truth be told, the original case of moreh halacha b'pi rabo comes all the way back in the Nevi'im, in the beginning of Sefer Shmuel Aleph, where Hannah is childless, and she prays and prays and prays for a son, and she finally has a son, and we know, of course, this son is Shmuel Hanavi. Then the pasuk says something very strange. After Shmuel is growing up in the house of Eli, and the pasuk says, "Vayishchatu et hapar, vayaviu et hanad el Eli." They slaughtered the bull, and then they brought the boy Shmuel to Eli. So Gemara says, "What's going on over here? What's going on over here?" He slaughters the bull, and then they bring the na'ar to Eli. So Gemara explaining what happens. He says Eli wanted to bring a korban. I guess Eli was a Kohen Gadol, and he said, "Go bring a Kohen to slaughter the korban." And Shmuel is a young boy at the time. Says, "What's going on? What's a commotion?" "Oh, we're looking for a Kohen. We're looking for a Kohen." Shmuel says, "You don't need a Kohen. Anybody can go and shech the korban." And so they bring him. So they bring him to Eli, and Eli says, "Where do you know that from?" So Shmuel says, "What are you talking about? It doesn't say v'shachat kohen. It just says vehikrivu kohanim. The kohanim's job is only to bring the blood, but the actual shechita, the slaughtering of the animal, can be done by anybody." So he proved to Eli that he was right. So Eli goes up to him and says, "You know what? You're right, but now I gotta kill you. You gotta die." "What do you mean I gotta die?" He goes, "You gotta die. You moreh halacha bifnei rabo." So they were about to go and bring him to his death. His mother Chana hears this. He goes, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh, he was moreh halacha in front of his rabbi." He goes, "So what? What's going on?" Eli says, "Listen, this is the law. He has to die." "No, I prayed for this son. I wanted this son." So Eli says, "I promise you, I'm going to pray for you. You're going to have an even better son than Shmuel." And Chana says very famously, "El anar hazehit palalti." He says, This is the son that I prayed for. I didn't pray for anybody else." And Shmuel heard, Eli heard the sincerity, the depth of those cries of Chana, and spared Shmuel's life. Can you imagine? We would have lost Shmuel Navi just because he spoke up in front of Eli Kohen, who was the Kohen Agadol. On a side point, Rav Shach says over here that how great it is that a person has a child, Bishut Tefillah. Bishut of the Tefillah was worth everything. Chana was promised an even greater son. But she said, no. This son I got through Tefillah, that's a son that I want to keep. Mefarshim explained that Yehoshua bin Nun lived 110 years. He was 10 years short of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. Moshe lived 120, Yehoshua lived 110. Why did he lose 10 years of his life? He was supposed to live like Moshe. They were very much equal. He was the Meshamesh of Moshe. So why is it that they lost 10 years? Because when certain prophets were staying behind, prophesying, brought down in Sefer Bamidbar, Yoshua tells them, the whole pasuk over there says, "Vayomer Adoni Moshe kelaem." That pasuk was 10 letters, and he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, "Get rid of them, destroy them. How dare they stay back prophesying when you have already gathered back over here?" Yoshua brought a law in front of Moshe, and that pasuk took 10 years, 10 words, and therefore he lost 10 years of his life. The person who's moreh halacha bifnei rabo, it causes a person to lose years. When the Gemara Masechet Chagiga describes that Yeshayahu Hanavi would list in his sefer 18 curses that were going to befall the Jewish people when the destruction of the Beit Hamikdash was going to take place, but his mind was not calmed until he said the following curse: Yirhavu hana'ar bazaken, that the youth shall bully the elder. In other words, that the students are going to come and overtake the Chachamim. At that moment, of all the horrible things that he had prophesied, that there were going to be no teachers to teach Torah, there was no people there to relate Agadah, there's no one who's going to fight for Torah, there's going to be no Navi, there's no prophets, no kings, all these horrible things that were going to come on the Jewish people. It was that one where he realized, oh my gosh, this is the worst of the worst. When a person is able to stand up in front of his rabbi and lay a halacha without permission, the consequences are dire. Why is this the case? The Midrash says, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Nimshelu Yisrael le'of, that the Jewish people are compared to a bird. Ma of hazeh eno porech belo knafayim, just like a bird cannot fly without wings, so too Kach Yisrael en yecholim lasot davar chutz miziknehem. Jewish people can't do anything without their elders. Other nations, they can do whatever they want without elders. They in fact consider elders, illegitimate. They considered elders unnecessary. We could live life without our zekanim. But the Jewish people are like the bird. The bird needs the wings to fly. You give wings to every other animal, they're still not going to fly. In order for the Jewish people to reach Shamayim, and the Jewish people to rise in their spirituality, you need the advice, you need the guidance of the Chachamim. And that's why we cannot overstep our boundaries in being moreh halacha bifnei rabo. So much so that the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin says anybody who argues on his rabbi is kecholek ala shechina. It's like you're arguing with a divine presence. It's as you're going against Hakadosh Baruch Hu and everything that the Torah represents. Why is this the case? The reason is Moshe kibel Torah misinai umsara liYoshua. We have a masoret. Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu, who then gave it to Yoshua, who gave it to Zekenim, leNeviim, This is all passed down by you overstepping your boundaries, by you saying to somebody else, "No, I know more than you." You are breaking that chain, and you are interpreting this Mishnah as irrelevant, as no, it didn't come from Shamayim, and therefore you're kilu cholek al hashechina, because you are doubting the Mesorah that took place over these years. And that's why Rabbi Eliezer was so strict with Rabbi Akiva. He said that statement, you got me with Shechita, but you should know that your end is Shechita. The Gemara in Masechet Brachot talks about Rabbi Chanina ben Achi, who went, Rabbi Chanina ben Achi Rabbi Yoshua. Sorry, he was a nephew of Rabbi Yoshua, and he went to exile and outside of Israel, and he started, intercalating the months and adding Adar Shanis whenever it was needed. And the people in Israel found out about this. He says, this can't be. You're not allowed to add a month outside of Eretz Yisrael. It has to be simply in Yerushalayim. Can't do this. So they sent two rabbis to go and inform him. Rabbi Chanina didn't know who these rabbis were. He says, "Hi, who are you?" We're here to learn Torah." "Okay, come, sit down, have a seat." So he's giving the shiur. And every time Rabbi Chanina says kosher, these two rabbis say non-kosher. Every time he says pure, these two rabbis say impure. They argue with everything. He said, "What's going on over here? You guys are Talmidei Chachamim. You're coming here and you're arguing with everything." He goes, to tell you the truth, we've only come here because you're doing something wrong. What are we doing something wrong? He goes, you're intercalating the months. You're not allowed to add Adar outside of Israel. So he said, yeah, but Rabbi Akiva did it. He lived outside of Israel for a time of his life, and he was adding months of Adar. And he says, no, Rabbi Akiva is different because he was the greatest of the generation. He was the only one that could do it. So Rabbi Chanina said, when I left Israel, I was the greatest of the generation. So therefore, I'm allowed to do it. And they told him, no. After you left, you should know there are other great rabbis back in Israel, and they're the ones taking care of this. So we're giving you an ultimatum. Either you stop what you're doing, or we're going to excommunicate you. We're going to put you in nidui. Velo tiye lecha chelek beIsrael, and you will have no chelek whatsoever among the Jewish people. That's something crazy. It's unbelievable. This was one of the great chachamim of the Golan. They're not only threatening him with excommunication, but they're threatening that he has absolutely no part in Israel. And in fact, if you go through the Gemara over there, they're almost comparing him as if he worshipped idols, as if he worshipped avodah zarah, chas v'shalom. Ad kedei kach, so much so, the answer is exactly so. You have no right to go against the Chachamim and Eretz Yisrael. Who are you to decide that now we're going to have an extra month of Adar when there's a Bet Din back in Yerushalayim, in the Bet HaMikdash, the Sanhedrin that are organizing this? You decide to take this upon yourself. You deserve excommunication. So therefore, we are giving you this ultimatum. We are giving you a deadline that you better get it done. There's a story brought down in the Gemara Masechet Pesachim that actually shows us this concept from a different light. Actually connected very much to Pesach, that there's a mitzvah in Pesach that when you need matzah, the matzah needs to be kneaded with water, maim shelanu, water that was slept overnight. In other words, water that was left out overnight, because that cools the water. Because warm water, when it's mixed with dough, might cause the dough to ferment quickly, and therefore become chametz much faster. So therefore, we have this concept of mayim shelanu. So the rabbi at the time, Rav Matna, was teaching this to us. He went to go visit a city, and he was teaching this concept of mayim shelanu, that you have to knead bread with mayim shelanu. The people, they heard the word mayim shelanu, and they said to themselves, we have to knead matzah with mayim shelanu. Shelanu means our water. So since Rav Matna was the one giving over the instruction, they felt that all the water needed to come from Rav Matna's house. So on Erev Pesach, they're all coming with their buckets. They're knocking on Rav Matna's door. What are you doing here? You said Mayim Shelanu, that it has to come from your water. So we're waiting. Well, here's the water. We need the water so that we can knead our matzot, so we can bake our matzot. And Rav Matna says, no, I didn't mean Mayim Shelanu, our water. I mean Mayim Shelanu. It's water that sleeps overnight. So what's the purpose of this story? Why did the Gemara have to tell us this story? To tell us maybe that the residents of this town were not smart? Was that the reason why the Gemara tells us this story? No. The reason the Gemara tells us this story is to show you that for so many years they've been doing the mitzvah of baking matzah one way. and the Mayim Shelanu, and all of a sudden they misheard the rabbis, and we got to get the water from the rabbi's house. We're going to listen to the rabbi. If that's what the rabbi is instructing us to do, then indeed that's what we are going to do, and that's called emunat chachamim. That's called not being moreh halacha bifnei rabo. I'm sure there were some guys that said, "Hey, but didn't last year we do it? We didn't go to the rabbi's house last year to go get the water. Let's just do the way we did last year." But if they would have done that, that would have been moreh halacha bifnei rabo. They would have suffered severe punishment. But they had emunat chachamim to go knock on the door of Rav Matna to see if that because they felt that's what he meant. Let's connect it back. Now we gave all these incredible stories and examples. Let's connect it back to our parasha. The Mishkan is up. It's Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Vahi Bayom Shemini. What is the Mishkan for? The building of the Mishkan is Yom Kapara Al Chet Egel. It's a day of atonement for that awful, horrendous sin of the Chet Egel, the golden calf. Now, if you think about it, the Egel was actually a good idea. We didn't know. We thought Moshe was dead. We needed an intermediary. We need to connect to Hashem. This is what they were thinking. The intent was there. The problem was, lo haya betzivui. There was no command to do the Chet Egel. They thought that Moshe Rabbeinu was gone. Let's just, this man that took us out of Egypt, lo yadanu mehayalo. We need this intermediary. Why did they choose an Egel? So the Mefarshim explain, because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down on Har Sinai, they were able to see a portion of their Kisei HaKavod, of the holy throne of Hashem, and one of the images on the holy throne is that of a shor, is that of an ox, of a bull. So they said, let's make something similar to this, because we really want to connect to Hashem. But since it was done belot tzivui, since it was done with no instruction and no command, it came out on Avodah Zarah. So comes HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe, and this week's parasha, or in previous parashiyot, and he says, we're going to build a Mishkan. And that Mishkan is going to be a kapara. And that Mishkan, during the building of that Mishkan, if you open Parashat Pekudei, which we read just a few weeks ago, it says 18 times, Ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe, like Hashem commanded Moshe. Why do I need so many times? Ka'asher tziva Hashem et Moshe. And the answer is midah keneged midah. You sinned with an egel. You sinned with a golden calf, belot tzivui, because you were not commanded to do so at this time. Now you're going to build a mishkan, and that's going to act as a kapara, and everything that you're going to do is kasher tziva Hashem et Moshe, is because I'm commanding you to it. You're going to build the aron, kasher tziva Hashem et Moshe. You're going to put the posts and the pillars and the curtains and everything that comes with the mishkan, kasher tziva Hashem et Moshe. On the same day of the Hakamat HaMishkan, Vahi Bayom HaShemini, the Chachamim explained to us that was also the day that they would sprinkle the ashes of the para aduma on the red heifer in order to purify everybody else that was there. And of course, this is one of the chukim, one of the mitzvot that we have that we don't understand. However, at the end of Rashi brings down Rabbi Moshe Darshan, who explains that goes through all the psukim explaining why exactly they were done so. So wait a second. If para aduma is a chok, so why does Rashi go on to explain every word and the reason that it was the reason was connected to? How is para aduma connected to the Chet Egel? And the answer is because the Egel was done, like we said, without instruction, and the kapara is the para aduma, and we're only doing it because of Hashem's instruction. We don't understand the para aduma. The only reason we're doing it is because Hashem is telling us to do it, and that's why the para aduma is also a kapara for the Chet HaEgel. Let the mother come and clean up the sins, the mess of the child. The para, the cow, come clean up the mess of the egel of the child. The Mishkan, everything that was there was built on Hashem's command. And all of a sudden, here we have the day, Vahi Bayom HaShemini, and the Mishkan is up. And we're doing it only because Hashem is telling us to do it. Kasher Tziva Hashem Moshe, and comes Nadav and Avihu, and they light a fire that they were not supposed to light. And they light this Esh Zara without receiving instruction from Moshe. And that was Moreh Halacha Bifnei Rabo. that was doing something without instruction, acting on their own will, acting because they thought it was right, and they were right, but they did it without tzivui. And when you do something on tzivui, on that day that was supposed to act as a kapara for a sin that you did without tzivui, it can't be. It can't be. And they paid with their life. They paid with their life, just so many of these other great tzaddikim had to pay with their life. I know for us it's difficult to comprehend, this idea, but if anything, it teaches us the importance of what it is to have a rav, what it is to have a rabbi, to believe in the words of the rabbi, to believe in and not overstepping your boundaries. How many times, unfortunately, we encounter people who think that they know it all, who says, yes, I know the halacha, and they start spreading halachot and saying things that the rabbi never said, or believing that they know when they don't. And the Gemara Masechet Brachot says that a person who does this is gorem shetisalek shechina miYisrael. It's causing the Shekhinah to leave the Jewish people. This is how severe this is. We are in a season right now, 3 weeks before Pesach, where the connection between Talmid and Rav, or community member and rabbi, is so ever important. Everyone has a lot of questions, and that's why the rabbis are here for. We're here to answer the questions. We hope that we can answer the questions. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer, but we hope that we can give a good answer. But don't take it on your own shoulders to say, yes, I know everything, when you haven't studied. Why don't start giving answers to people when you don't have the background, when you don't have the sources for this. Doing so is a severe averah. Moreh halacha bifnei rabo has dire, severe consequences. It's for us to recognize that, to humble ourselves and say, yes, you know what? Although I might think I know the answer, but just to make sure, I'm going to reach out to the rabbi, because I know the rabbi has studied a lot about this. And that's what even ourselves as rabbis do. Even the great Rabbi Akiva sinned in this with Rabbi Eliezer and all the other great chachamim. Knowing who your superior is in Torah, those are the people that we have to go and ask for. Bezrat Hashem, understanding this and recognizing this important part of our Yehadut reinstills and re-energizes, re-solidifies the Mesorah. Moshe kiber Torah miSinai umsara liYoshua v'Yoshua lizkenim. That's all we have. And Chas v'Shalom, we should do anything to break that chain, because then, like I said, the Shekhinah gets thrown away, and we don't want that to happen. Bezrat Hashem, Hashem should give us the koach and the humility to go and ask. It's great to ask, and we continue to ask, and hopefully we get the answers that we are looking for. And at the same time, having Hashem remain in our lives, protecting us and all of Klal Yisrael. Wishing everybody a wonderful night.